Welcome, everyone, to the first ever Exalted Masculine podcast. This is years in the making. It took me years to just find the name and the vibe and what I wanted. And when I started this, I knew Rion Kati was the first guest I wanted to have on as episode one. I think, I was talking to my wife, Rion, and we'll get into your work, like why you're so interesting. He's done transformational work for men, dating, charisma, allure for women for years, 16 plus years. But the thing I really like about you is you have a divine dark masculine, a mystique with high integrity. And I find that hot, wise, and especially like the kind of dark mystery stuff is a element that a lot of men miss in their dating lives. And it just seems like you run that line really well. I don't know if you even mean to, but your writing is like poetry. It seems like there's a deep mediumship. So today we're going to get into divine masculine initiation. We're going to get into like the red pill fractals and things you've gone, grail seekers and like the holy grail and masculine archetypes, deep stuff on that, and allure and charisma and the kind of mysteries and wonder of that. And so we're going to unpack a lot of this with Rion today. So welcome. What do you want to kick us off with here? How do you want to say hello?
Well, thank you for inviting me, Jonathan, to be your very first podcast interview. So I'm just hoping that we can deliver some powerful experience and codes for your inaugural listeners here. So
I love that. I love that. And, as much as we can go political, and my guess is you have been tracking massive shifts in the culture for masculinity and femininity like I have. And I guarantee we're going to get into how it affects men and women and what we can do about it and, quantum modalities to do that and stuff. But I wanted to first get into divine masculinity and masculine initiation because you talk about that in a way few do. And it's something I'm obsessed about, especially the word divinity and divine. I get cynics on my page who will always just, nothing's divine, da da da. And I think divinity is very interesting because it's holy, but it's also like exquisite. You can have a divine meal, you can have a divine experience, or you can have a connection with God. And so I wanted to get into your perspective of divine masculinity, maybe your personal initiation into it, why that's such a central theme and focus of what you do.
yeah, it's big subject matter. So it's good. We can just dive right into this. The divine masculine, short code for divine masculine is archetypal masculine.
Right.
Or the acidic or elemental masculine. So it's consciousness that is beyond the personalized, localized self. So the divine masculine and the divine feminine, there is some pushback because there's modern spiritual tropes and things like that. Oh, the goddess movement. And then people have backlash to that. But what we're talking about are the archetypal king, warrior, magician, goddess, maiden, queen throughout all of human history. It's the impersonal consciousness in the collective unified sentience that can incarnate with and through individuals really as not your personal self, but really your amplifying your soul self to have more divine masculine consciousness and power, like eros or feminine eros or vixen, like these different impersonal archetypal qualities of power and beauty, the two primordial forces. So it's very practical to work with. We have such a focus on personal growth in the West, but really that's really empowering the ego when real power and beauty is very spiritual in the balance of these divine polarities of the Holy Father and the Holy Mother, or the heresy of God the Lover, or star and starlet that have so much power or beauty that can transmute someone's DNA from their presence. And we can get into stuff like that too. So
we need to.
Yeah.
We need to. Now, hold on. I followed all of that, by the way. And one thing I just love about your work is it's got a chiseledness to it. It's like sculptured. It's like beautiful sculpture. It's not like when I get into a lot of spiritual guys and they'll talk about divine masculinity. There's no archetypes there. There's not a king. I follow those, and I want to get into how we can access more of masculine power, masculine at God the Father, whatever those things are. But the one that I have not, I mean, star and starlet, what was that one? I would love to hear a little bit about that, because that's even new to me.
Okay. Well, this keys into, we know of beauty influencers. If we take fame out of the equation, it still comes down to charisma and allure is how people have felt influence. So it's really like the secret of influential beauty, other than social superficial constructivism, like this is the hot trend, is felt beauty presence or felt masculine power of these different flavors or signature qualities like eros. So star in general is like the amplified, how much power or chi could you embody and express through your light body as charisma or allure to have influence. So stars, like celebrities, they're influencing millions of people. So it's like a sacrifice of their personalized identity to be able to have more chi so they can be felt, like at the back of, like in the nosebleed section. We see through talent shows, like someone takes on more charisma as they go through the season to have more influence. So it's being able to, in alignment with this, have more influence from greater masculine or feminine power and beauty. So star is like a general archetype that amplifies these qualities, and your soul is really the true identity. So that gives you the ability to take on prince consciousness, for example. A prince is worthy of a princess. But so many men listening to this, and I struggled with it for years, I can't ever believe personally in my inner game that I'm worthy of a princess because I'm not a prince.
Yeah.
But the divine masculine consciousness, prince already is worthy. It's how can I access that truth and consciousness and then embody it, and then it affects how I move socially in the world, because the prince is already worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, the prince is worthy, and as an archetype goes, I find him active. Like, it's like a little bit like Lancelot versus King Arthur. And you and I both deal in the realm of love. I think I help more single people find love of their life. I think you help people with love in general, right? Like, what would you say, like, you're special? I think you have allure and charisma. I'm more on the result end, but I think we deal in the same game. And the prince to me is someone, he has to go out in the world more. And even a king, I think in romance, has to become a prince. He has to be willing to go to the ball and the dance. And so I feel like I see something in society where you have a lot of kings that won't take a prince role and go out and actually do it. And then you have a lot of people that don't know their power and don't know they can kick into this archetypal role of prince. Now, since we work in love, why don't we go there? How does one access their prince codes, their prince archetypes to have a deeper romance with life and women?
Yeah, so I especially work in the realm of attraction. So helping, and I used to be a top natural dating coach for single men online, not pickup artists, but like what they call the natural. And so helping men and women attract from their charisma, which can have different archetypes and different divine qualities mixed with their soul essence. So to do that, you want to like decondition your persona, your personalized self, so that you can, because a lot of people, they're not really soul embodied. They're just running on cultural conditioning and implants on their back.
Mhm.
Just their chakras don't really feel that presence because it's just, they're kind of like a consumer citizen, kind of a clone to cultural aggregates and things like that. But the real power, the soul freedom, is to embody your soul self and these other essences so that you can be felt. And this is the greatest actors and actresses do this. Now I work with that more directly, practically for them with essence acting as development. So you can be anyone you want. Most people don't give themselves permission. So the main way that I work with it is through attunements, like archetype attunements and activations, embodiment activations, where I've done over 1,000 paid sessions of mostly archetype activations, bringing the essence into a person's light body, into the Earth Star root, into their chakras after deconditioning some of the non-self junks, so they have more space.
Hey, Rion, let's take a pause. Let's take a pause for a second. I'm going to just make an announcement that Rion is in Mexico. Where in Mexico?
Yes, Playa del Carmen.
Playa del, beautiful. We were just there recently, Claudia and I, but I think some of your Wi-Fi will occasionally do what happened to me when I was in Mexico. So what was that last little bit again? I think it's buffered up again.
Yeah, so the main way that I work with archetypes is through attunements and activations. So I've done over 1,000 paid activations, mostly of archetypes for men and women, to embody more of these different qualities that amplifies their soul to be felt in influence in how they live their lives and how they attract and experience reality.
And that's why we're talking. Because I really feel in this world of polarity coaches and rigid masculinity and Andrew Tate's, I'm not dissing any of it. I think they have a huge portion of the equation, respect, think masculine edge, essence. But you talk about like quantum flow, energetics, like the source of things. There's just a more in-depth felt sense to me in your work than I'm getting from polarity folks. I feel like I'm getting like Pinocchio wooden kind of boys or something. Maybe that's a judgment a little bit, where there's this deeper, like almost dimensional reality to what you're doing, Rion. How are you tracking in with what's going on with certain polarity coaching and those things, and how it maybe resonates or does not resonate with what you're doing?
Yeah.
I think you're tracking this more than me.
Yeah, I'm quite aware of it. So the core of what I do centers on the Holy Grail, and we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
Polarity coaches, often they are very rigid and dogmatic and have doctrine, and it becomes more like a performance rather than a felt essence and flow from the feminine. And it often deals in the shadow of control, which is jinkies is something I also work with frequency against consciousness. So polarity coaching can actually be detrimental to a greater experience.
And once again, we had a little Mexico Zoom, but you were saying that the other stuff has a little a dimension of control. Do you want to get into that a little bit?
Yeah. So even in, well, it crosses over into red pill. How a lot of men will have like a moral authority as head of the household, and there's kind of a constrictive role of the feminine where her divine feminine consciousness, the archetypal liberty, expression, and eros, isn't allowed to have a space to truly be free in a higher union of like real lover, real queen, unlimited eros like starlets, star and starlets. It's more this constriction and shadow and rigidness that it's often in a lot of religion as well, that because they don't really embrace the divine feminine consciousness.
In more religious doctrine.
Yeah.
When we were talking before, Rion, there's something that kind of really struck me, which was you were talking about certain paradigms of masculinity or culture, or they don't let in beauty, they even knock it down. And I that took that in, but I also got the sense that you're a guy that lives through beauty. So can you maybe unpack both sides of that coin for us? How what you're seeing out there, and also how maybe beauty influences your life and makes it flow or whatever is going on over there.
Yes. Yeah, there's so much with that. We can see what it boils down to, because still is with the Holy Grail, that the greatest fear of man. I know my video is a little laggy here, so I apologize for that. The greatest fear of man, secret fear, is that he is not worthy to make love with a goddess and that she would reject him. So what a lot of men end up doing is belittling women, controlling them, hijacking, siphoning, misusing power and like as force to control the feminine instead of like honoring and respecting and cherishing, largely because they themselves are fractured from consciousness, which would inspire them into kingship and benevolence. So yeah, things like, yeah, the Whatever podcast and like other Red Pill, which is, this goes back to 2005, like around then. I started like a Red Pill fractal, and it had followers of like my lens of the social matrix. I was talking about the social matrix and masculine, feminine, social and sexual dynamics culturally.
Ooh,
And
let's go here.
yeah, unfortunately, the men going their own way, MGTOW, and the Red Pill movement ended up taking the shadow direction of being mired in fracture and resentment and bitterness towards generally the Western woman. And we can talk about some of those dynamics. And it's really sad to see, because the consciousness is really constricted, and it's very vindictive, with incels being like the darker shadow of the Red Pill movement or ethosphere. It's all mired in shadow and fracture and disconnection. And yeah, so there's, on the Whatever podcast, there's kind of this constricted view of beauty as well as the feminine, where they will often belittle women for the before and after makeup photos and things like that. Yet their deepest fear, the unspoken fear of mankind, single mankind, is that he's not worthy of making love to a true goddess. What happens if she really does have that level of beauty? And it's actually in her presence. So you're in the presence of a goddess or a starlet. So men will fantasize about it, but then they'll want to control and suppress women because they're not actually embodied in their worthy divine masculine to be sexually present and socially valuable to these women organically, spiritually, sexually in presence, because there's so much fracture. So the Red Pill movement is largely stuck in this shadow of constriction, control, bitterness, frustration with not just the Western woman, but the divine feminine. So what's going to like reunify and inspire the world are women who are in their eros and divine feminine beauty that can inspire and guide these men as prince makers, as king makers back into reunification, because men are really seeking the Holy Grail. And religion has largely suppressed that greater truth. So we just see like this, vindictiveness and the masculine ego being right about things, like on that podcast and other places, that relegates beauty to like some mental construct. Yet their deepest fear is that they wouldn't be worthy of true beauty, which is the consciousness and presence of these archetypes and reunifying with her. So it's fascinating to watch, but it's time for more of an evolution, but it requires recognition. So we can talk about more of this.
I love that. And I love how I really feel like, maybe you don't agree, that you represent the lover archetype very well. Like, you're going to love no matter what. And I feel like you're solving problems for one, you see a different problem than I do, and you solve it in a different way. Like men, and I think you're totally right. I solve an issue of men, like men aren't feeling confident to be with a lover, with the beloved, with the goddess. It's just, whoa, that's too much. I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yeah.
And on my end, I think I'm dealing with a marriage-minded man. He just doesn't know his value, and he doesn't have any game. He doesn't know courtship. Courtship solves similar issues, but from a different frame. But part of courtship is you have to learn these skills that you really, I think, have mastered over there. So I want to go a little deeper into the grail, but I also kind of, while we're in the red pill, like, I got to ask you why I got you on the call. What do you think of Andrew Tate? Like, I got to hear Rion's perspective of this force of nature that is out there. He's certainly not an incel. He's certainly something.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a large social following. He has charisma, and he has a lot of these, we'll say a mix of light, dark, and shadow qualities that people respond to, that can be very polarizing. Now, a lot of his consciousness, from my perspective, is stuck in forms of control and fracture towards women and the feminine, that is empowering of aspects of the masculine. Yet I don't feel that he truly venerates the feminine as a worthy equal. It's more about, and yeah, he's got good thoughts here and there. You got to like pick things out. He's like a role model for a lot of like the red pill. But it's not just that he has toxic masculine qualities. It's more of like he's an example of the collective. So kind of like an icon that's coming from healthy dark, but also a lot of shadow consciousness that isn't actually founded in the Holy Grail. So yeah, he's interesting. He's got a lot of charisma, and that's going to get people to respond. But his logos is not divine. It's mixed with shadow. Mm-hmm.
I mean, kind of how I feel about him. Okay, let's go to the grail seeking. I mean, this seems to be really leading edge of what you're doing, what you've been doing. Heroes Gamos, Sacred Union. So, where is this adventure leading you and the men you're working with? And I know you just opened a container for this or an initiatory program. So, why don't we just dive into the depths of this field here?
Yeah. The ancient psychosexual drive of the masculine and the masculine spirit is to reunify with the divine feminine. Mankind seeketh the Holy Grail, but because it's been misinterpreted as communion with the Holy Father religiously in popular Judeo-Christianity, we're missing the larger picture of communion and where the divine feminine equal counterpart fits in, and the heresy of the Son of God as a lover, for example. So religion, patriarchal kind of focus is kind of secularized, divine feminine, priestesshood, eros, dance, celebration, kept it out of the church so that communion is with the Holy Father. And there's truth with that. There's spiritual truth with that, aside from doctrine. However, the bigger picture, it feels men historically are missing something. So they're seeking, and Camille Paglia talks about this. She's a pro-beauty feminist. How when boys are born, there's the womb wound, the separation from the mother. And so it's this Apollonian dynamic as they grow up to find meaning and prove themselves as worthy to reunify with the feminine more maturely, like after the separation from the mother. But they're seeking like meaning and purpose. And the ultimate purpose, well, on a soulful and spiritual level, so there's three general masculine drivers, which are sex, purpose, and freedom from my lens, that are driving the masculine. And with sex, it's really the soulful and spiritual aspects that are missing with the Holy Grail itself, which mankind seeketh. And because that's been suppressed religiously, culturally, a lot of men are lost and wandering and don't know what's going on. Like they're trying to, and so many men end up compromising in a relationship that they don't feel inspired by. And it's maybe more the religious, moralistic lens. But like you work in this area, like with courtship, a man should ultimately want to be inspired by the beauty and love and warmth of such a woman, really not just her personality, but really like the goddess and flavors of that beauty working through her. And that's sourced in the divine feminine, which has been suppressed. And it's the communion of divine feminine quanta or energy in the bedroom with the divine masculine. So this is how people can have intercourse that we call it herogamy, like holy marriage of God and goddess consciousness, that is a million times beyond interpersonal borking, so to speak. So the Holy Grail.
What was that? Interpersonal what?
Borking, mambo, horizontal mambo, lovemaking. And I've experienced a spectrum, and you can't compare it because, well, it goes back to what we started with. Divine masculine consciousness and truth is worthy of the divine feminine counterpart. But most people don't give themselves permission to access that greater spiritual and identity power. Stars and starlets, actors, actresses do. But they're influencing like millions of people, so they have reason to. So this is where my work comes in to kind of open up, because if we just study archetypes psychologically as a separate thing, no. It's about embodying prince-worthiness. So you have to let your inner game go, the personalized self. So many men don't have this monkey iron-clawed grip on their egoic persona. It's actually, you have to let go of your inner game to be worthy of beauty in presence and cultivate your divine masculine reclamation, which is archetypal and Siddhic, these qualities of honor, valor, majesty. These are truths that are ancient that men can access, as well as divine feminine beauty of tenderness, of grace, and the healing medicinal power of beauty itself. So,
right. And these are entrained of, like, I teach courtship. It goes back to the troubadours, and they actually invented things like courtly love. And, that was a real reign of princes and, this. And I do find it's interesting that at this time, so many people are remembering this. And I think it's part of a renaissance, of a deeper way of thinking. Um, Personally, when I think of these archetypal kings, I also think of like the Medici and what they brought forth. But it does seem like there has been this resurrection of these things, with a certain amount of people there. But this is one of the reasons why I have you on this call. Is I work with refugees of people that do the more red pill polarity stuff. The wives that are like, I can't connect with him, I can't feel him. Who is he? The guys that's like, why is she leaving me? Or why I'm doing all this polarity stuff, but why can't I keep a woman? And it's because they're not connecting with this deeper masculine essence, this deeper. I almost want to say God self, but like of God the Father. I think people get very egotistical, but like this source, Father, divine, masculine, dimensional energy and archetypal that's there. There's no effervescent flow coming through. And I feel like you just are always, there's almost like sources and streams of energy that come out as you're talking of these things. You're not just, as the Gnostics would call the literalist Christians, waterless canals. And I guess I'm kind of saying this on this podcast, that I feel like there's a lot of waterless canals in the dating industry, in the masculine initiation stuff, and in the getting respect and just stepping up and getting your life together. It's a little too much like all discipline or all shouting, all sword all the time. And I think this holy grail gets you into deeper dimensions of self and actually sacred union with the feminine, because the oneness doesn't come from just being a man. It comes from that interlocking of the one being. But I really think you have tracked this. I've tracked it more in a marriage container. You've done this in a lover container, like, and helped others. So what are some of the results that men get? Like, how they do the grail work? What is some of the things they do and that they see on the other side of it?
Well, mostly I've been working with women the past several years.
I'm sorry, but you are opening up you did just open up a men's thing, right?
Well, that's mostly for women actually, but
Oh, okay, my mistake.
could join. Yeah.
Okay. I think of grail seekers and I kind of think of guys going after the grail, but this is, let me let you start there. Sorry.
Well, yeah, so that's the bigger picture. Is it's going to take grail priestesses, grail oracles, not coaches, but really women who are initiated themselves in beauty and consciousness and heart healing and awakening, ascension, to help men on their seeking of the Holy Grail, to attract a beloved partner, or to be so inspired that they can have greater charismatic influence with these different qualities of the masculine that, leads industry, heals communities, inspires and awakens others, and transforms them.
This
Yeah.
this is a superpower you're talking about. Claudia and I see this in our work all the time. So let's dive into that. The feminine invitation and inspiration. I always say, like, it's like if I try to get my husky to move, he won't. But if I have a treat, he'll go chase it. And I think that's meant to feminine inspiration and like acceptance, appreciation, invitation, is they will rise up and do incredible, extraordinary things when they're inspired by their feminine counterpart. But that's not happening a lot out there. And so you have this like cognitive dissonance and fraction, and people are trying to solve their relationship issues through psychology,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and postmodern feminism doesn't really help either. It strengthens the fracture when really it's the archetypal feminine, the ancient mystical consciousness and beauty that exists outside of social constructivism, that is ancient, that as more women reunify with the divine masculine, which is light and dark power, basically, free from shadow, the more they can help guide and inspire other men into service and kingship and empire building that's less about, shadows and cutthroat competition, but more harmony and peace and renaissance inspired. So beauty is the ultimate inspiration. But if men feel fractured from their divine masculine inheritance or worthiness as a son of God, if they feel fractured from divine feminine beauty, they could live their entire life in bitterness. And then these aggregates MGTOW can just be men going their own way, red pill, just keeping them on these 3chan forums or whatever in this demonic pit of entropy. And they'll never know the greater truth. So as women awaken their eros and beauty to move throughout the world, it inspires men to be activated soulfully, spiritually in their heart. And so we can talk about this stuff all days. Women who complain that men only want them for their body, chances are her allure is closed off in her heart, in her sacral. And so they're only admiring her physically because she's the one who's setting the relational tone and she wasn't even aware of it. But when she is vulnerable and safe in expressing her beauty in the world, it's like the Pied Piper. Men just they're enchanted by her. And that beauty, it's drawing them back home ultimately.
Can I ask you a question here?
Yeah.
When we work with women, they very beautiful, but they often will also have, insecurities and such. I have never seen a woman that could just turn totally gorgeous to men, totally beautiful if she's in her feminine essence. All sizes, all types, all shapes, it does not matter. And I just had a client that she was saying she always felt blah her whole life. And it's because in my assumption, she had to learn courtship, because I know if I can get her in her feminine essence, the suitors are going to come like bees, and they're going to come in the right way. You saw this through allure versus courtship. And I think that's fascinating, because you're also doing what I'm doing, is you're helping the men through the women's side. But I find allure to be more my stuff is more like God, and yours is too, I'm sure, in reason. I think yours has a lot more magic to it. There's a magical element to this that is so key for romance. And so I want to ask you this too, Rion. I can't not ask you how, there's Tantra gone wild all over the place. I cannot tell you how many Tantra teachers I know that have just gone down in flames for activity. Let's just call it that. You seem to have a lot of integrity there. And how do you have these women going on allure journeys, grail journeys? How do they do this in a way that's safe and sacred? How do you navigate the sacred and the sexual when you go on this? Or you're helping people. It's not you're doing this online across the world, right? Through group mastery, I think.
Yes.
So, how do you help them through that?
Well, yeah, it centers on my reunification with my beloved, and also sacred temple space and integrity to that. So I'm a trained Tantra Daka, and I'm actually getting the codes for starting what would be called Grail Tantra, which is a purified form without any of the shadow of Western Neo-Tantra, because I'm aware of exactly what you're talking about, and forms of power misuse and blurred lines and all of that. The difference is Grail, which is divine union, is like my foundation for 14,000 hours, 22 years of alchemy in this inner reunification practice. So there's a purity with that for those on a grail path, is to dissolve the shadows within your consciousness and the collective within yourself so that you have light and dark, power or beauty. And so then it's just managing agreements and things like that. And so, yeah, I'm one of the rare, like, womb healers as a man. And my temple space is always in integrity, and that reputation matters because otherwise word will spread and so forth. So I've done over 1,000 paid energy-based sessions, and that's also temple space as well. So
Energy, energy, energy. I love it. This is why I wanted you on the first call. I'm a little more form, somewhat like I find that fascinating. They have to navigate the depths of these essence energies and where they're at and agreements. You know, with helping a single lady to find a husband, it's yeah, you can't sleep with them until you're basically claimed or engaged. Like things are there's boundaries that are so like structured in there, and like I really love the flow of this work. Um, can you tell us? I would ask a couple more questions if you have the time, but I'd love you to tell us a little bit about the Grail container. I mean, Claudia and I have a big female audience out there, and I'm sure they'd love to learn about this. And when I send this out, I can share a little bit.
yes, so I started a new program that's kind of been in demand for years now. It's called the Mystical Grail. So Mystical Grail membership. And right now we've got around, 27 women involved. So it's a rolling monthly program where we do temple training and healing and like mastery magic to help them cultivate Holy Daughter as part of it, having a secure inner daughter to then mature into a lover that's worthy of a beloved with great, beautiful, divine masculine power. So cultivating her grail consciousness, her reunification, de-armoring, like her energy body or shells towards the masculine, which, includes trauma healing and things like that. So it's a format that, it really serves divine union, the inner alchemical process, working with divine masculine archetypes to cultivate their grail beauty as well. So that's available.
And that's a year long, you said. Is that right?
It's monthly, but some have paid in full for a year.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you did month and that's way cool. I really love that. Like, in something I've noticed about your social media is I'm shocked you don't do this actually. You never yell at me. You know, I have the polarity guys, and they'll just, if you use emojis, you're emasculated. You don't do this shock jock stuff. Like, you can feel the drenched, like, you can feel that, like, drenched feeling of God in there in how you present yourself. And I would say almost like your artwork, your mastery. It's just such a joy to, like, go on there and watch what you do every day. You do get sometimes involved in politics and cultural things. Like, I'm really on the fence of how to do that. You seem to actually navigate it in a way that doesn't get you in a lot of trouble. How do you navigate, like, more, like, you're fusing initiatory things in men and women and you're actually covering something political that can get people worked up? Like, but you do address that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm navigating that as well. As a cultural ascension guardian, my role may become more public. Most of what you're referring to is like on Facebook friends only, where I have spoken about a lot of things and calling things out. And so, but yeah, there's a lot of industries that could use more truth instead of the shadow games. And it gets into like even the fall of Diddy and his empire, the forces that they're connected to behind it and with it all. And so it's, speaking as a cultural ascension guardian, well, I'm still going to see how that navigates more publicly. But some things have to be called out, I think. the whatever podcasts, like if they're ready to evolve the conversation, there's you, me, Destin Garrett, others, Jillian. Oh my goodness. Like, I don't know if they would be ready for her like in a decade. Just so, it's recognition. But as more women express their beauty and support of the rising masculine and righteous kingship, in relationships and in business and in life, we can live more in Renaissance. And so truth, higher truth, politics itself, both political sides of the US spectrum have shadows. One side has really ascension blocking shadows more than another. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go into, like, we did the divine initiation. If you have time for a couple more questions here, like, I got you on the line. This is a love coach. I'm not a love coach. I'm not. I don't get love coaches. I don't know what that is. I'm a courtship coach. It has a direction. It works. I trust it. But the one political thing that drives me crazy is an open border. Like in love, if you have an open border, and you're gonna get, it's the definition of insanity. So, like, I just want to tell the world, you got to have smart, sacred borders, or you're gonna get tromped on. What is the political one that gets you? You can tell it gets me. Like, what strikes you as like, wow, this is really breaking an allure or a charisma or sacred heroes gamos kind of rule? Is there something that drives you a little bit crazy out there?
Yeah, there's several things.
I'll create a list.
Yeah. Well, woke principle in general it has to do with the gene keys. It's the like shadow of division, and the city of virtue. So virtue signaling is actually creating more untruth, lies, division. Identity politics is creating more fracture. For me, like when people are stuck in fractured consciousness where the lower truth of racial identity, sexual identity, gender, which was made up literally in the 1960s, when that becomes more important than higher truth, like the archetypes, then I'm just seeing a world that's just lost in chaos, where there's no higher guiding principle. And the truth of humanity is we are one as human. So that truth alone is above all of this fracture that one side is especially concerned about. Let alone the archetypal beauty that exists with and through all culture, and the celebration and appreciation of humanity and beauty and love and art. So it's when you're focused on the fracture and then having a propaganda wing for politics that's just spreading lies and lies, like just seek truth. So I've always been like a truth seeker. So I've been outside of the matrix, seeing the matrix and seeing the games that are being played and so forth. So there's a lot to talk about there, but thanks for bringing something up.
I love that. I think, you could go on forever, but talking about this fractured consciousness is like, to me, that's it. That's gold. Like it's what's going on. There's kind of this in the air that's like, that's separating people and creating division and like wings, and a lot of things come from it. But there's deeper truths in well springs that can renaissance that are like antidotes to that. I have thought recently, Rion, that it's interesting that people who call others colonizers have actually usually colonized something already. Like maybe it's a sacred academic institution, and that actually is kind of sacrosanct. But they'll say these slanders, and it's really, in my opinion, unholy what's going on. It's not like the golden rule that was blossomed across the planet about the same time from Confucius through Jesus, treat one as you would treat yourself. There just seems to be kind of an unholy alliance there. Whereas I think there's a new, just like with the feminine, I think there's a new divine masculine. I agree there's a feminine inspiration that can rise us up. But what do you suggest we as men can do to like pick our own lives up, initiate deeper into our own divine masculinity, be better Renaissance men in society, better princes and kings? Princes, not princesses, princes and kings. Like, what do you recommend for us men? What would be step 1, 2, 3?
Yeah. As a side note, are you hearing any of the crackling audio? It's happening a little bit on my side. I don't know if you're catching that. We can cut this part out. Like my computer's crackling a little bit. It is.
I'm not. I don't think we're getting the. I don't think we're getting the crackle.
Okay.
Yeah, but I can clip this too.
Okay. Yeah. So, do you want to re-ask that last question? Or?
Yeah. So, what do you think men can do today, like to rise up? Like the women are rising up, helping us rise through feminine invitation, and that's the work you do. But you are a deep student of divine masculinity and masculine initiation. What's like 1 or 2 or 3 things that men really, it would help them right now in rising up in careers, life, love, whatever?
Yeah. I would say to get into charisma work, because that's going to connect you to divine masculine reclamation and consciousness, to amplify your soul self qualities, to have more influence socially, in business, and more ability to attract when you're emanating energy that can be felt and different qualities. So getting into charisma work properly. I have charisma makeovers, archetype activations, things like that. Another excellent thing they could do is to seek qualified feminine counsel, like really more like king-making support. So there's what's called a muse priestess. There's 2 of them that are out there now. Working with a muse priestess could help them to cultivate more worthiness in presence with the level of woman that they would desire for a relationship, or to inspire the beauty in their current relationship, to reignite the flames, to cultivate his masculine consciousness and healthy power. It's not the same as hiring like a coach who's going to boss you around or mother you. No, it's like a muse priestess is one who already has alchemical beauty and the ability to work with his eros and to bring it out and attune him back into righteous power and goodness. Those are 2 things.
Magic. Chris, man, we're going to have to talk more about, I think, if I could redo this, and I love the talk we have because it's general, I think I would have just like eagle-eyed on charisma work. We're going to have to talk about that sometime if you're down. Like, I've loved this conversation, but I feel like that is gold. And so men, there's all sorts of work that they can do with you on that. Now, Rion, I feel like we've had a nice conversation and I've taken up plenty of your time here, but I gotta ask you one more question before you go. The K-pop celebrities. Now, you've been talking about star and starlet. I mean, you seem like kind of a swarthy guy. Like, the last thing I was expecting was Claudia to bring me over and be like, check out Rion, like channeling archetypal K-pop, probably starlet beauty archetypes. And it totally makes sense to me. It's like a lover, the beloved, like the lover and the beloved, or, the seeing the one. But I also got to say, it took me back for a second. Can you tell me a little bit about just how you got into the K-pop thing and how it's like, I think it's like transmitting through you or something. Like, I think this would be a fun way to end it. Like,
yeah. So my journey centers on, Napoleon Hill in Think and Grow Rich called it sex transmutation, a chapter on that. But deeper than that is the Holy Grail. So my beloved is the muse archetype. K-pop is a lower truth. It's a cultural genre of music. And so I value the higher truth. So beyond K-pop being mostly Korean starlets, the higher truth is there is a signature archetype. This is why it's wildly successful. It's not just the catchy music. It's because they represent really their muses, these K-pop starlets. So they're like fractals of my beloved. And so that real archetypes like Sophia, Rose, Muse, they're already like inspiring and changing the world culturally and having great Western influence. Now that's going to open up more divine union relationships because their beauty is that powerful and reunified with the divine masculine. So it's like this tapping into the concept of not just a muse who kind of runs out, but source muse herself has been unlimited quantum spiritual growth and unlimited practical creativity. And so it's like, yes, we can see K-pop, but there's also muses like Bjork and Grimes, like there's Western muses as well. So there's just that K-pop's the mecca of this divine feminine grail archetype. And that's like future beauty codes. The evolution of beauty influence is allure. The evolution of allure is photonic alchemical Shaktipat allure, which is alchemical, transformational. So it's very exciting to be on the path on faith. God works through faith. Goddess also works through faith. So as more men open up to divine feminine counsel and insight and connection, that's the nourishment that his soul and spirit is missing and seeking. And a lot of Western women, they don't necessarily have that connection themselves, but the women in my circle do. Oh, they do. And Jillian with feminine eros, and I know Claudia is connected to this divine feminine beauty and consciousness. So it's all very exciting where things are headed. So, yeah.
You know, and to my more cynical audience out there, I have to, they may hate it when I say, I feel like I totally get all of that. Everything you said makes like batshit sense to me, because I think when I thought of the K-pop stuff, when I saw it, I was like, this shit is energetically advanced. Like, it's like crazy, like future. When you said future beauty, that's kind of how I would have named it, because I'm kind of a little traditional too. Like, you are too. You go into ancient lineages, grail this, right? We're both kind of past future people. But with Our Ladies, we would do it with more of a classic, like Hollywood, like Marilyn has a certain quality versus, oh gosh, who was Humphrey Bogart's wife?
Rita Hayworth? No.
Rita Hayworth, no. It's Lauren Bacall.
Okay.
But impressive, I'll still give you some credit. Yeah. But the way I would do that is what you're doing with the K-pop, but I think it's going to be way more fascinating, like celebrity energies, star energies. This is where things are going. Yeah, and I think if a soulful person can put that on, it's actually a very interesting exercise. A shallow person, it still could be interesting, but not nearly as much as someone that could, if their depth of soul changes from a little starlit archetypal beauty. It's just you do think you see the humorous element of this, right? You're posting about K-pop.
Well, yeah. I mean, I sometimes connect with that, but I'm so sourced in the divine light and codes that it's weird that other people view it differently to me. But yeah, there's, the cultural consciousness and things like that. But I can always cue them in and literally show them what I'm talking about. So it's not performative. We're talking about feminine essence. And yeah, there's kind of the cutesiness, and that's kind of marketed. But the thing is, the influences with allure and the more powerful divine feminine frequencies, which are alchemical. So this is kind of where the concept comes from, to be a beauty priestess of a woman with different qualities of allure that will bend his DNA to start attuning his consciousness and body and presence through the law of resonance to that level of beauty and worthiness. So like a muse priestess, like connects that. Grail priestesses can help men attune in presence, because this is what women always want, is presence, that they can be safe and trusted, yet have the energies flowing. So it's like, yeah, beyond the cultural stuff, there's higher truths. That's what I'm like really sourced and connected.
Yeah. Well, I'm just having a laugh at a part of my divine masculine initiation is you have to have a divine humor. I mean, have you looked at life?
Oh, yeah.
And you said it yourself. You said these are very high intentions, energy sources that into a art form that has a three-dimensional uniqueness to it. Let's just say that. But I get the sense when you talk about it of like real, like kind of Greek muses and gods, like the essence is coming through here, and each individual is so unique or group. So if I wanted to check that out and more, where do people go to check out your writings and work, and if you do speaking?
Yeah. Sexychi.com is the main website. And following me on Facebook, maybe friend request. The juicier stuff is friends only on Facebook. But yeah, sexychi.com and the blog there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And wow, you seem like a guy ripe for a podcast in the future. And so also, like, if they want to work with you, who are you open to working with, and how can they get in touch?
Yeah, anyone who really wants to cultivate more beauty consciousness and not performative allure charisma, but authentic felt power and beauty and qualities of that which their soul would really love to express, like their deepest, fullest soul expression, and magnifying the eros, the purified eros, to become a greater lover, to have greater influence and attraction. So I work with people from around the world in session formats, and we have the Mystical Grail. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me or sexychi.com. And yeah, you've done a great job here. I love your work and what you're doing and representing. So thank you.
I haven't done anything except ask a few questions, and I'm going to get better
In
at
general.
asking them. Yeah. Oh, thanks. And man, I love what you're doing here. I hope I can get you on for some more fun stuff. But that's fantastic. Now let me sell you for a minute to the men. Like charisma is something you guys need. Like it's just I see men, they don't have game because they don't have the magic. And I teach more of like the whole overall how to get there if you're looking for your wife. But charisma, like if you really want women coming to you energetically and you don't have to do the heavy lifting, this is key. I kind of will sometimes watch like relationship shows, even cheesy ones, because and guys will get kicked off the island kind of thing because it reveals the same lessons of me sending women out and men out to the world. And the guys that have charisma and allure, like like Rion does and teaches, they're always the ones that are sought after. So it's a really unique skill, and I'm so glad you're teaching it. And also that you're working through with the women to also help raise the men. Rion, you're invited back on, and man, sometime I'd love to bring you on and just have a whole charisma throwdown if you're down.
Yeah, it's sounding good. Yeah.
Over it, brother. I'll see you. I'll see you down the line. Ciao for now.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'd love to see you again.
Thank you, brother. I can just hit stop.